Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. Let's talk about the latest development in that search for the next House Speaker, how that vote has officially been delayed. There was even some comments and some developments of how Representative Jim Jordan would support the interim speaker to cover down until January. So we'll give you the latest on that. Also, we're going to be checking in with Palestinian journalist Laura Albas to talk to us about the latest that is happening within that Israel-Hamas conflict that got the whole world talking. Later on, folks, we're going to day 4 of the Culture's Black Men Summit, where we're talking about Black men in mass media, discussing everything from the representation to how we can tell our own stories in a way that is fitting for our legacy and our power. We'll have that conversation. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, let's jump right into it. As of course, we got so many big stories to talk about, but I want to certainly let you know that we are streaming on our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Just download the app, folks. Follow us on social media. And of course, your financial donations makes a world of difference as we continue to power through this space of this digital media. So go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com and join us right there. Also, we are streaming on Amazon News on your Fire TV, on Amazon Prime Video. You can find us there. Just find us on Prime Video app, live TV or news. You can go to Prime on Amazon.com under Prime Video and live TV, and then to the news. So you can definitely check us out there. We're also on Freevee, and you can find us right now on Now under news. So you can check us out there, as well as Plex TV, where you can find us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All right, folks, let's jump right in. As I see the Culture crew, as we're streaming live right now on the YouTube page under Roland Martin. So make sure you go to our YouTube page, Roland Martin's YouTube page, jump into the chat and be a part of the Culture crew for the day. Now, let me just share this very quickly. Yesterday, had a dynamic conversation talking about Black men in education. On my end, the broadcast stopped abruptly, but there were some equipment issues that we were experiencing. So unfortunately, certain things like that will happen on live TV. It's crazy. It's frustrating, trust and believe. I was upset about the situation, but we were able to kind of get back on track. So I appreciate all of you joining us again today as we are going forward in day 4 of our Black Men Summit. But certain things you can't control, and you just kind of brush it off your shoulders. Thank God for the opportunity and keep it moving. So, we just wanted to acknowledge that disruption, but make sure y'all check out the replay. Because the replay of the past 3 days have been phenomenal, and the feedback from all of you has been overwhelming. So I thank you so much for your patience and, most importantly, your support of this effort. All right, folks, let's just share with you some of the latest news that is coming out of Washington, D.C., as we're finding that Representative Jim Jordan has decided to kind of put his candidacy for the House Speaker on pause and move forward. He said that he would be in support of the interim speaker just until January. So that vote has been delayed because of all of the riffraff from that. Jim Jordan he thought he was going to be a shoo-in, but he wasn't able to quite garner the votes that he wanted. And so because of the infighting within the GOP, at this point, Jim Jordan said, look, let's just put this thing on pause. Let's get the people. Let's go back to the business of the people, and then we'll revisit this thing in January. So with that, you're talking about the background for that has been what's been happening, of course, between Ukraine and Russia, what's now been happening with Israel and Hamas. That conflict is brewing. You still have a government shutdown that is looming, that is expected to still possibly happen in sometime in November. So there's a lot for the House the House needs to get back on track on dealing with. So they're moving forward with not having a new House Speaker. They will keep the current interim House Speaker until January. And we will have to see, folks, and we're talking about interim Speaker Patrick Henry of North Carolina. And so we will have to see how this situation is going to move. But there's a lot to talk about, especially coming from the government. The government needs a lot of support. And we're expecting also tonight, as it relates to this situation and this conflict between Israel and Hamas, President Biden is going to be making a national address at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this evening, talking about some of the latest developments in that situation and how the U.S. is planning to respond to the conflict. There's talk that he's going to be proposing, or he's going to be announcing rather, that he's going to give aid to support Israel unequivocally. And then he also is planning to talk a little bit about possibly giving some aid to those in the Gaza Strip. So that speech is going to be this evening at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we will have to see how everything is going to move forward. But one thing is for certain, folks, the American people deserve an operational government at this point. So we do not need to have a whole bunch of riffraff when we have these major issues that are on the agenda. Everything from war to inflation to this situation with the government. I mean, still a lot of things that are at play here. So we have a lot to talk about. And we don't need to have more infighting on the within the political party. So just wanted to bring you up to speed on that situation. Make sure y'all tune into Roland Martin Unfiltered this evening, because I'm sure more news, more developments, and more information is going to be relayed right there with our big brother, Brother Roland, and the panel there. And more importantly, just stay tuned. As you know, here on the Black Star Network, we have been streaming a number of different addresses and activities coming from the White House. So just be tuned. Make sure that you show your support for Black Star and get tuned in. And we will make sure that we will provide the unadulterated, unfiltered, complete message of anyone from the president to the vice president or anything else that's happening in Washington. We will keep you informed. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk a little bit more about this Israel-Hamas conflict. I'm going to be checking in with Palestinian journalist Laura Outibus as she's talked to us about some of the latest that she's heard on her side and the experiences. And yet, how do we move forward? And more importantly, how can American citizens be a part of the process to broker peace between these two nations? So we're going to have that discussion up next. Of course, no conversation is complete without you. So make sure you join us in the chat as we are streaming live on YouTube under Roland Martin. We would love to hear what you have to say, and let's have the conversation. So stay with us. That discussion is up next right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the discussion, folks, as we are going to just have this ongoing conversation about the situation in the Middle East, as we are in another day of fighting, another day of warfare as it relates to the Israel-Hamas conflict, a conflict that was just started 12 days ago. On October the 2nd, from strikes from Hamas to Israeli targets, and it has created a worldwide concern and problem. Let me just say that, worldwide concern and problem. Thousands, unfortunately, have lost their lives since the beginning of this phase of the conflict between the two nations, and as a result of that, there are more and more Americans and people across this, not just across the country, but around the globe, that are expressing their rage and their displeasure, their anger, their frustration for both sides of the discussion, on both sides. So we wanted to continue to do our part to provide some insight and some coverage into what's been happening, things that you may not have been privy to, things that your information that you don't already know. So we wanted to make sure that we're doing our part here. And so I am so happy to have my sister back into joining us today as we talk a little bit about this situation. She is a Palestinian journalist. She has worked for Palestinian organizations within Washington, D.C. and across the waters. And of course, her connection with her family here in America and those in that part of the world. So we welcome back to the airways of The Culture here on the Black Star Network, Laura Albas. Laura, peace and blessings. How are you today?
Thank you for having me, Farajii. I cannot say that I cannot answer that question. It has been very, very difficult. I've lost friends in Gaza.
First and foremost, our hearts and prayers and condolences go out to you and your families and to the family of your friends. Let's start with the fact that this latest round, and I'm not quite sure how to kind of describe it, Laura, but this latest round of fighting, it started from Hamas making some strikes in Israel on October the 7th. Mm-hmm. But from your vantage point, give us some insight into the backdrop. Was that the starting point? Was that what we were just told here on this side? Tell me what's been going on from your experience.
Of course. So no, it did not start with the October 7 attack. I think it's really important for viewers and listeners to understand that Palestine has been occupied for 75 years. I am a descendant of refugees. I grew up in a refugee camp in Syria because my parents and my grandparents were expelled from our cities and towns in Palestine. A lot of these towns had Palestinians who were expelled into Gaza. So 70% of the population in Gaza are refugees. For 17 years, Israel has had a complete siege, a complete blockade on the Gaza Strip. They control everything from the amount of electricity that goes in to the number of calories everybody's allowed to have. People need to get permits, pay thousands of dollars to just leave Gaza or be denied if they want to just travel abroad. There is no mobility. There is no employment. Israel has completely choked the Strip. So imagine that you are born into that reality and you grow up and you're 17, you're 18, and you grow up in a cage, you cannot do anything, would you not fight back? Would you not fight back knowing that your grandparents have been killed and expelled out of their homes? So the framing in the media currently is making it seem as if this came out of nothing, as if this was unprovoked. But if anybody was paying attention to what was happening over the past few years, from the Unity Intifada, the protests we saw in May of 2021, if everybody has seen the videos of an American settler in Jerusalem saying that if he does not steal a Palestinian's home, then someone else will come and steal it. There has been killings of journalists like Shireen Abu Akleh, who is a Palestinian American who was murdered, and the US did not seek accountability for her. And we've seen so many raids in the West Bank and elsewhere in Palestine. So this has been ongoing. So I think that framing is really important. Now, going into that, what has happened is not new. Israel always retaliates. There are currently 170 children in Israeli prisons. Why would you arrest children? What has happened over the past few days, over the past almost 12, 13 days, is that there has been an attempt to reclaim what is ours, to reclaim what is for Palestinians. But the response is insanity from Israel. They don't even care about their own people. The captives that are held in Israel, many of them have died because of Israeli bombs. And you can see that a lot of Israeli civilians have come out against their government, saying that the government does not care about the captives and they do not want to negotiate. Israel is taking this opportunity to wipe Gaza off the map. And I would just like to note just a few figures. There has been, as of 3 hours ago, as reported by ABC, at least 3,785 people have been killed in Gaza by Israeli bombs, including 1,524 children. The images that are coming out are traumatizing. I cannot imagine what they are experiencing over there. And the fact that American media has welcomed Israeli officials who called us Arabs and Palestinians human beasts, human animals, saying that civilians is okay, going unchallenged. The media is complicit in this, and I will bring this back to the United States. A couple of days ago, a landlord, went into the home of a Palestinian American family and stabbed a Palestinian American child, Wadi al-Fayoumi, 6 years old, in Chicago, screaming, "Muslims must die." I just want to put this frame of how everybody is talking about the genocide taking place in Gaza, and they have turned it against us, the Arabs and the Muslims. They're using Islamophobic tropes, racist tropes, and pretending that for the past 75 years, everybody was living in La La Land. I hope that puts it into perspective.
No, that puts us, I think, Laura, I think it puts a lot of things in perspective. And I think that's the hard part about this, especially for Black folks in this country, for other marginalized people in this country. We're not being exposed to the full picture unless you go into social media, unless you check out spaces like an Al Jazeera or some other, platform. We're not being exposed to that. And in this latest round of fighting, there's been a huge emphasis to make sure that people see those pictures, see those videos of children, Palestinian children. But then I also know that there is some careful storytelling about what's happening with Israeli children. And some people are saying, look, like you said, the Israeli government is responsible, but the Israeli people are suffering as a result of the decisions by the Israeli government. As a Palestinian journalist, talk to us is there a way to tell the story that both, because it can go back and forth. It's been going back and forth for 75 years. We know that. So can we look at the people of Israel the same way that we look at the people of Palestine? Can they both be kind of, and I'm talking about just regular folks. I'm talking about people that just work and live and just not talking about government officials But how do we get to that storytelling that to honor even those who are in Israel, or do we not have that part of the story? Or trying to get some balance here.
Yeah, let me tell you something. There is no balance, because for a long time the balance has not been in the favor of the Palestinians. $3 billion annually of U.S. tax money go to the Israeli military to fund the killing of Palestinians, not just in Gaza, but across the West Bank and Jerusalem, and even in other towns and Palestinian towns. I think it's important to also know that when this took place on October 7, a lot of people have been saying this in the media. Oh my God, they came into a music rave and people were running. Who in their right mind would party next to an open air prison where people are suffering? Who in their how can you, a person with conscience, go to a place where a few minutes away people are suffering while you're drinking and dancing and pretending that nothing is going on in the world? I think that needs to be clear. Let me give you different examples. Right now it is the season of olive harvest in Palestine. We are known for our olive trees. It is a ritual, it's a tradition for families and farmers to go to our olive groves and pick our olives. Every single year, the Israeli military shoots at the farmers and burn the farms and burn the trees every single year. The problem is this does not get reported. We only see things on the media when the victim is the Israelis. And I will leave for the audience to decide why. When it comes when the news is about European settlers or Muslim and brown and Christian Palestinians, who deserves more attention? What has happened? So I would like to also, you were talking a little bit about the media and the representation of stories. There has been a recent article I think everybody should read by Jewish Currents. It's a progressive media outlet. They've done an excellent job at looking into the bias that exists in Western media. And they've talked to several people, several high-ranking Palestinian professors and analysts who have been invited to speak on different mainstream American channels, and then the invitation was revoked last minute. Some of them were literally waiting, like me right now, waiting to speak to the anchor, and then they were canceled out. And that news outlet has proved that there has been interference by higher up editors and managers who, after learning what these Palestinians wanted to say, which is the truth, showing our perspective, the truth, they decided to cut that out because they realized that they are losing the battle of narrative, because people don't need me to come and tell them that we are dying. They can just look at the images and see what the massive proportional difference of the suffering of the Palestinians. We don't have a land. We don't have rights. We cannot leave. We cannot travel. I cannot go home. It is unbelievable. And I hope that we can talk a little bit about what Biden has been doing soon. So
yeah. I mean, we got to take a quick pause. But I think that, Laura, your story and the struggle of the Palestinians sounds eerily similar and familiar as it relates to, the struggle for civil rights and human rights. That's the same thing that Black people in this country, we have been fighting for. That's the same thing, unfortunately, we have been experiencing. And you're talking about that media whiteout of certain voices. Yeah, that's the same thing we have experienced as well, which is why even Black Star Network has been established, because we're just not hearing those voices that we need to hear that are relevant and important for Black America. Look, we're going to take another quick pause. We're going to continue the conversation with Palestinian journalist Laura Alabest on the other side. Folks, I wanted you to join us in the conversation. Join us as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page. And of course, stay tuned. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
all momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We've been talking to Palestinian journalist Laura Albas, and she's been kind of giving us her take on and giving us her take on the latest round of violence between Israel and Hamas and the Palestinian people. Laura, people have been checking in, and I want to kind of get your take on this because I know that there's so much information out here, and this is one of those stories or one of those conversations where what you say and how you say it, and it has to be quantified and qualified and all of those things. As a journalist, you understand that. So it's always one of these things that there's so much information that we're getting bits and pieces on this side of the water. And then journalists like you and others who are in these spaces much more deeply than we are, you're seeing something completely different. But talk to us about what is the view of the Palestinian people as it relates to Hamas. This is a big question that a lot of our online culture crew members are checking in about, asking about Hamas. Is Hamas Palestine? Is that a growth of Palestinian people? Who is Hamas, and how does the Palestinian people see Hamas?
All right. So I think this is a question that is inevitable, that will always come in. I just want to clarify and make it very clear that what the American media has done is put us all in a box of one group. Hamas does not represent all the Palestinian people, but that does not mean that they too have not suffered. If Hamas's name was a different name that is more acceptable to the West, would they have accepted what they have done? I want people to understand that we have not used violence in the past. We have used nonviolence. The people of Gaza have marched peacefully several times before this genocide began in 2018 as well, and even before that. And Israeli snipers shot at them. They killed nurses. They killed people point blank. All they were doing were chanting and holding flags. Nonviolence was tried. Boycotting was tried. Marches have been tried. Nobody has accepted us when we were peaceful, and nobody is accepting Palestinians when we fight back. And I think that needs to be clarified, and that needs to be fair. Hamas is a political party. I want this to be clear. Hamas is a political party with a militant arm. There is a difference. In 2006, they came into power in Gaza as a government, not because people all loved them, but because people had criticisms of the Palestinian Authority that was not giving basic needs to the Palestinians in Gaza because of the Israeli occupation, because Israel has divided territories in Palestine and made it extremely difficult for anybody to communicate or even move. Even the West Bank itself is controlled by Israel around it. But we're talking, this is 2006. How many people are alive today who voted in 2006? How many people in 2006 were children who could not vote, who did not have the right to vote? So the idea that everybody is framing this as Hamas and Israel is because America loves to be entertained. They love to be entertained. So to them, this is entertainment. It is clickbait. It is no longer our lives. And I just want this to be clear. And I will bring an example in here, the ANC in South Africa. Everybody called them terrorists. Joe Biden was in the Foreign Senate Committee for 30 years, and he called them terrorists. And Mandela was not removed from the U.S. list of terrorists until 2008. And they were called violent. And they were called terrorists trying to free themselves from white supremacy in South Africa. We are doing the same. We are trying to free ourselves from white supremacy that is brought on by European settlers who are not indigenous to the land, who came from Germany, who came from Poland, who came from the United States, who came from Russia, and they're trying to control the Palestinians and take their lands. I want this to be very clear, and I'm glad that it is asked. And I know it's very difficult. It is very difficult to have information come in. But
let me ask you this question, Laura, because I know our time is limited. And I'll certainly bring you back on. One of my Culture Crew members said, but Farajii, Hamas and its politics is superseding the people of Palestine's presence in the world. Until the people of Palestine get rid of Hamas, then how can it be better for them? This is from a crew member. Is that the case? Do you feel like because they were a government now that has a military arm, that it supersedes the greater interest of the Hamas the Palestinian people?
No, let me bring you back. Gaza has been under a blockade for 17 years. Hamas has no control over what goes out or comes into the strip. They have no control over the food that gets imported. They have no control over whether people can leave the crossings in the south with Egypt, or if they are able to travel and leave. They have zero control. Israel controls the Gaza Strip. If you are elected into a government, they got elected and the blockade immediately occurred. So listen, as any other citizen, if you disagree with your government's policies, that is okay. But the problem that is happening today is that even if there is disagreement with there is support and there is disagreement. It is like any other representatives anywhere in the world. But the difference here is that if us in America, if we disagree with Trump's government, if we disagree with Biden's government, nobody's putting us in a box and saying that you are a fascist because Trump is your president, or you are irrelevant because Biden is your president. Nobody does that to Americans, but they do it to Palestinians. We are being blamed for being killed. I hope that puts into perspective.
No, that brings things into a perspective, and I think that helps for some of us, gives us some insight as to what we're seeing, because this current space that we're in, and I only got like a minute or so left on this, Laura. So this current space will show us where people are everywhere. I just read, or I saw it on social media, there were a group of Jewish protesters who were in DC. And I don't know, Lisa, Chris, if we can pull that up very quickly from that IG post, but there was a group of Jewish protesters that gathered in DC to protest against Israel.
Yes.
This is a very empowered. This are Jewish protesters that are leading the charge against Israel and the occupation that of Israel on that part of the world. And so this is a young lady by the name of Jessica Early Litt saying, yesterday I showed up in DC with thousands of other Jews, including my mom, to loudly, not in our name and ceasefire now. Hundreds of courageous protesters, including these members, shut down Congress and got arrested, demanding an immediate ceasefire and end to funding the genocide in Gaza. Yeah. In that same piece, that young lady put it out there that the American people, we are funding the genocide of the Palestinian people. So we have groups like that. I'm in Los Angeles, Laura. In Los Angeles, just over this past weekend on Sunday in West LA, you had Jewish protesters that were pro-Israel who came to the streets. This is something I didn't know about LA until I read the story. Los Angeles has the highest population of Jewish people, second only to Israel itself. So it speaks volumes about where people are, especially the Jewish community is on this issue. It speaks volumes about where we are at this point. We got about 30 seconds of this. What do you think, or what should Black folks and marginalized communities take from this situation? We had a conversation about this earlier last week when the fighting started. But how should we see this situation, and from your vantage point?
Of course, there are two things that need to be done here. First of all, you are Americans, so you have representatives and you have a right. I would encourage you to call your representatives and demand a ceasefire now. Our representatives right now are taking a vacation. I don't know what the hell they're doing. There needs to be pressure on them to push for the ceasefire and stop funding Israel. A lot of the bombs falling on Gaza children are actually American bombs. A lot of the money that is now the blood money that is being made right now is by weapons manufacturers in the United States. That's one thing. The second thing, nobody is free until we are all free. We have stood with our Black brothers and sisters. We have stood with our Indigenous Black brothers and sisters, and they have stood with us over several years. We have protested with you. You have protested with us. It is time that we stand together again and protect each other against white supremacy and against this barbarian murder of the Palestinians for simply existing as Palestinians.
Laura Albas, who serves as a Palestinian journalist. Laura, we will certainly bring you back on to kind of get more updates to see how this situation plays out. I know that we didn't get a chance to talk about the president, but he is expected to address the country tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about possibly some aid for Gaza. He has said that he would be his administration would provide some aid for Gaza. And for about 30 seconds, what's your take on that? Because I know that was a concern that you had.
He's providing $100 million aiding Gaza, but he's providing billions into weapons to Israel. And Israel's not opening a humanitarian corridor. They're refusing to do that. Where's that money going to go? If Israel won't let the aid in, if they won't have a ceasefire to let the aid in, where's that money going? Biden has expressed unequivocal support to Israel. Him saying that he's sending aid is just to get votes from progressives and liberals in the United States so he can keep his seat. But he is a loser, and he's going to lose this election.
Laura Albas, Palestinian journalist, checking in. Thank you, Laura, for your time. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's have the conversation of day 4 of the Black Men Summit as we talk about Black men in mass media and having a conversation about representation and the fact of presentation of when someone else tells our story. We're going to be checking in with a dynamic panel of brothers who I'm very excited to have. Ernest Owens, an award-winning journalist from the LGBTQ community. Alex Blanc, who is a podcaster, media advocate, and executive producer. And Brother Richard Rowe, who is an author and advocate of the Black Mental Health Alliance. So we'll talk to those brothers and, of course, with you as we have day 4 conversation of the Black Men Summit right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation. only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, welcome to The Culture's Black Men Summit here on the Black Star Network, where we're talking about redefining and celebrating Black manhood. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in for day 4 of our critical and important conversation. Today, we're going to talk about Black men in mass media. As we know that there has been a number of conversations about representation, presentation, and the impact of mass media when it is distorted or biased. And so we wanted to kind of get more into this because we're seeing now more than ever that there is a major bias in the reporting of our stories. There's a bias in the telling of our stories. There's a bias when Black men come into the picture. And so we want to challenge that and start to uproot that. And more importantly, start to figure out ways that we can change the culture and, most importantly, tell the stories the way we want to tell in a way that is going to work for us instead of against us. So I'm very, very excited to have this conversation. We're going to be joined by some dynamic Black men who are going to talk to us about this. But first, let me start with my friend and brother, who is a man that has been doing this type of work for many years, even though he's a young man. He's doing this work for many years, working in a number of spaces. He's worked here on this show on the Roland Martin Unfiltered on this network. He has done work at the at WEAA in Baltimore at Morgan State University. He has his own podcast. He is a media advocate and he's an executive producer. So I want to welcome to the airways of The Culture and to Black Star Network, my brother and friend, Brother Alex Blanc. Alex, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Brother, I mean, that right there, I need to update my bio. I am blessed, Farajii. I am very happy to be. I'm very happy to be here. I couldn't ask for a better program to be on to talk about this topic, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate you, man. And for those who don't know, Alex is, when I tell you this brother is sharp, he is sharp, y'all. He is absolutely sharp, and he understands the dynamics. He's worked in media for many years, but more importantly, he's a man that actually cares about how our story is told. And so, Alex, I want to kind of get the start on from you when we look at this situation of Black men in mass media. As a young Black man, you've been in a lot of different spaces. Mm-hmm. You've worked with everyone from Oprah Winfrey. You worked all the way up to presidents of HBCUs and colleges. You worked with hip hop artists in all of your spaces. Of course, you've done fantastic work with us here on Black Star Network, and we're working with Brother Roland Martin himself. So you've been around a lot of different people, but I do want to know, do you truly believe that there is an agenda to misrepresent Black men in the media?
Oh, absolutely. It's I wouldn't necessarily. It is an agenda, but then also it's a mechanism that has been used to oppress us for a long time. You know, I truly believe that the dynamic of the black household has taken a huge impact from that dynamic and that agenda. Being in the media, of course, I worked in, as you mentioned, all of the spaces, and I've just seen how it can influence all of us. You have these stories, and it's just ironic that you ran that piece from Roland, Uncle Roro. Honestly, we didn't even have to have this segment because he said it all right there in 30 seconds. Going back to the Freedom Journal, where we wish to plead our own cause. Why is this something that was said so many years ago, but yet we still find ourselves having this conversation because misrepresentation has been at such a large rate? And then also we see how it translates when we are misinformed, and how misinformation can spew hate, can spew a culture, can get somebody into the office that didn't deserve to be there. But when we look at our culture overall, there is a huge byproduct of this agenda that is still going down and trickling down into our communities every single day.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought that up, bro, because I feel like we need to really take a look at the impact of that, because I don't know if people truly know how much that goes into the psyche of Black men, right? And I remember growing up, Alex, seeing certain images, you know what I mean? Back in the 80s and 90s, and for all the brothers in the chat, y'all remember this, right? Like, as much as we had, quote unquote, gangster rap, right? The emergence of street rap in that gangster, quote unquote, gangster culture. There was also Bill Cosby. There was also Carl Winslow on Family Matters, right? There was also, you had shows like Living Single, where you saw Black men, those Black men characters. You had shows like Martin. You had a lot of there was an array of expression of Black men, right? Growing up in the 80s and the 90s, and there was this thing. And the level of quote unquote consciousness, people would say that was like the Renaissance conscious age, right? Back in the 90s, where we were super pro-Black. I mean, we wearing X's on our shirt to represent Malcolm X. We rocking dashikis and Afrocentric patterns, and you know what I'm saying? And we were in that space. The Million Man March happened in 1995. That took things to another level. But then I saw after the Million Man March that there was even more intensified effort to remove the positive, the empowering imagery of Black men, because all of that time, even though, like I said, you had gangster rap, I wouldn't put, even though Boys in the Hood was a very popular film in the early 90s, it wasn't a film to glorify street life. It was a film about how to get through street life, right? Like you can still win. And so I think that after the Million Man March, and maybe a year or so after that, we started to see this greater intensity to remove Black men, to start to diminish the imagery of Black men. So what do you say? Are we slowly getting back into that place right now?
I mean, there's a lot of people that are making conscious efforts. I mean, outside of this, you have your Ryan Cooglers, you have people that are stepping into spaces to try to take control and hone our narrative. You have Roland Martin, you have yourself, you have me, there's people that I have met that I never knew about in the job that I'm doing right now. And I'm just like, wow, there's so many people that are working behind the scenes. But here's the problem. I would not know these individuals and the work that they're doing if I wasn't in these spaces or allowed to go into these spaces. Now, I am blessed to be able to walk into the rooms that I walk into, that I am in. But let's talk about the average person that doesn't have that access. The average person that is just seeing what is mainstream. And what quantifies as mainstream is normally what is entertaining. But sometimes what is entertaining doesn't serve as what is within the best interest for our community. I use myself as an example specifically because I didn't, ironically, and you know this story, Farajii, I didn't know about journalism. I didn't know, I knew about Spike Lee. I knew I wanted to be a director, but I never knew of journalism as a route that I could really take and pursue within my career. But again, influence and mentorship, right? There was a conversation that I remember, I think it was Van Jones that was talking about how instead of trying to correct or reform people, we need to serve our community in a form of mentorship. And one of the ways that I have gotten even stepped into media was through the form of mentorship. My mentor, God rest his soul, George E. Curry, passed away in 2016. But prior to that, he was the one that even showed me what you could do. He showed me the power of controlling your voice and controlling your narrative. But again, let's speak back to how many people don't have access to that. Now, this is somebody that I've known my entire life, and he's 1 degree away from me. And I didn't even know this is a man who was a part of NABJ, who has done respectable things within the journalistic community. And he's 1 degree of separation, and I didn't know who he was. So let's think about how many people are seeing the impact of not knowing who they are or the potential that they can reach. So again, going back to your original question, is there are we getting back into that place? Yes. But there's still, I often say this, for every negative story that is out there, there needs to be a positive to counteract it. And I just don't think that we are there, not nearly enough. Actually, to speak to that point specifically, NABJ came out with a report in September about 60% of people, of Black people, think that we are misrepresented, or they think that the media portrays us in a negative way. 63%.
Yeah.
Now, for us to see that is a problem, because now if you already feel and you're going to an outlet and you think that they're not talking to me, they're not going to say anything positive about me, where are you getting your information from now? Where are you getting your identity? Where are you forming your identity? What are your influences? And what we see, because so many people are forming their identities off of things that really don't matter, that things that are not substantive, things that, of course, they are entertaining. Now we see the trickle down effect. We're talking about, I'm in DC right now, ironically, for the Joint Center Summit. And DC has seen an uptick in crime where nearly everything has doubled. Homicide has doubled. Robberies have doubled. All these different crimes have doubled. And it's sad because when you look at who is doing the crime, these children, and I say children because they're 18 or younger. At Morgan State University a few weeks ago, my daughter, a 17 and 18-year, what are we feeding our kids? What are they seeing? What is it that says that this is the only outlet? And again, we're not going to do this by forcing anything, but we need to speak truth and positivity into our youth so they can be able to say and see within themselves that sorry to go back. When you know better, you do better. But right now, there is not enough representation.
Hey, bro. Hey, no, you good. Hey, no, because what you're saying is truth. And here's the crazy part about this, Alec. The crazy part is, I'm going to give you 2 quick examples, then we're going to take a pause. First example, this is something I personally have seen. You go to a children's party, they playing adult-ass music. The ratchet, non-edited music.
We talking
you
about
go to a kid. I'm talking about whatever your ratchet trap music is played at a 6 or 7-year-old party. So when you said, when you know better, you should do better. That's one, right? Second one, you go to a college homecoming. Colleges, and I'm talking about an HBCU. I know some of y'all about to hate me right now, but I'm gonna say it. We go to these homecomings of these HBCUs, and they have some of the most ratchet performing artists at homecoming, all to put butts in the seat, all to get the dollar, right? And these are conversations that are happening on Black college campuses about bringing certain artists who you know is putting out destructive content, who you know is putting out information that doesn't help to elevate and edify the thinking of young people and on college campus. You see what I'm saying? But this is our own people, all in the name of it's just a little fun. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the part, when you know better, you should do better, right? I'm not saying that we need to be perfect, but you mean to tell me that we expose ourselves, and I'm talking about little black boys, little black girls are exposed to ideas about themselves through music, through media, through their friends. Their family comes like number 4 or 5. Don't even put no faith institution in that joint, because that joint comes later. But through media, friends, and then family or something. But you mean to tell me their view, the view of children, is being influenced by some of the most negative, destructive messaging and elements, bro, that we promote to them?
Well, so as you spoke, it just made me think of like this up and coming generation. Something that I had to realize was they don't know life outside of the internet.
Yeah.
This is a generation that they have the YouTubes, they have the Twitter. Like my nephew is 11, and there's a culture shock where I'm talking to him about AOL, and he's looking at me like just like stars around his head. But it's a double-edged sword, right? Because from the same aspect of you have a well of information, you can also have a well of disinformation. So we understand that there are influences all around us. So when you talk about like a HBCU, again, I went to a HBCU. I've been a product of it. I'm a huge supporter of homecomings. I've seen it. You know, there are artists that come through. And I've heard the argument that this is a representation of what we see. This is just our narcissistic standpoint. I would love to hear your take on this about rap being an artistic, but at what point do we take a step back and say, okay, this is the effect of certain lyrics? We can see. And it was ironic because I just finished reading Young Jeezy's book, and he talks about wrestling with himself because T.I. told him that in his book, and you can go get it for yourself and read it, that you can't live both lives. So you can't live the life that you are rapping about. And he had an internal battle with himself because he's like, what do you mean I can't live this life? And he talks about overcoming it in the book because he had to come to realize, oh, this is a facade. But here's the problem with that. These young boys, they don't know that. These young boys are thinking like, okay, this person is living this lifestyle, and to be seen as tough or to get the respect that the quote unquote respect that I want from this world, I have to go and move that way. That's scary because now you have people, again, who are 18, 17, 16, as young as 12, getting killed, shot, and there are consequences because of this. So it is sad. It is a sad reality because I enjoy rap music. I'm not going to sit here like I don't listen to gangster rap.
No, I get it. I get it.
At the same time, I do understand that there is a consequence of the music that is being put out. So it's a double-edged sword. So I know we got to go to break, but I just want to say this last point. When we look at this, the thing that also speaks to me when we talk about representation is who are the A&Rs? Who is within the record labels that are making these decisions? Because we always look at the artist, but there's always somebody above you. Who is a part of that distribution team? Who is a part of management? Who is a part of who is in the boardroom? And 9 times out of 10, they don't look like us. But yet they're the ones that's like, this is a great song. This is they control the machine that is putting out this content. And again, it goes back to literally what Roland was talking about in that we wish to plead our own cause. For too long, others have spoken for us. And that is something, but the misrepresentation that comes from that, from other people speaking our own cause, we feel the impact.
There it is.
The consequences. But,
hey, bro, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation on the other side, folks. As we talking to Alex Blanc, who is a producer, executive producer, podcaster, media advocate. As we talk about Black men in mass media, I want to discuss in the next segment, folks, this idea of structural systemic issues versus anecdotal issues, because this is a part of the narrative that we have been given and are conditioned to believe in, that the anecdotal is going to be the true representation of us, when in fact it's not. It's used as that, but it's not. We're going to get into more conversation and details. Plus, I want to hear from you. Make sure you join us in the chat as we're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook, and we love to hear what you got to say. Just go on to Roland Martin's YouTube page, post your comments, and let's continue the conversation on the other side. You're tuned into the Culture's Black Men Summit, where we're redefining and celebrating Black manhood right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA, and this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation, you and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together, so let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, welcome back to the Culture's Black Men Summit, where we're redefining and celebrating Black manhood. And today, our focus is Black men and mass media. And we're joined by my brother and friend, Brother Alex Blanc, who is an executive producer. He is a podcaster, media advocate, and just a brother who's been in a number of different spaces as he's looking at this landscape of media and giving us his insight and his thoughts on what we can do to improve the representation of Black men in mass media. Now, folks, I invite you to join us in the conversation. We're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube, and it's on our YouTube page under Roland Martin, where you can join us as part of the online culture crew, and you can post your comments, share your questions, and your thoughts about this topic as we continue to talk to my brother Alex Blanc right here. Janae checked in and said, big shout out to Alex for quoting Roland Martin. Absolutely. So we see that. Now, here's the thing about this whole process, Alex, that I wanted to kind of get your take on, which is I think there is, as much as there is a concerted effort, some people will go as far as to say conspiracy, but I do believe there is an agenda to keep us out, to make sure that our power is diminished when it comes to mass media, right? It started very, very early on. I remember seeing a documentary about Birth of a Nation, the original Birth of a Nation. And that was produced, and I think it was the early 1900s. And they were talking about in this documentary how it was that film where Black men in particular were seen as the villain. It was a film that is hailed to be one of the greatest films of the 20th century, but it was a racist film because it showed, and this was more silent at that time, but it was a film about the KKK being seen as a positive light to protect the honor of white women from Black men. And it was really about, it was like a KKK propaganda film. But the point is that it started from that we started to see how black men from that very first film, and they didn't even have black men in the film, it was actually white males in blackface in that film, but how the depiction started and that continued all the way up into today. So you're talking about at least over 100 years that films have been in existence, that mass media has been in existence. Black men has yet to truly been on top. Now, we have this thing in our culture that because a black man is in a leading role, or because a black man is seen at the front person for music performance, or whatever the case may be, and they garner some level of success, that all things are well. And I want to push back on that, and I want to get your take on that, because there's an organization called the Opportunity Agenda. This is y'all should check it out, the Opportunity Agenda, opportunityagenda.org. And they are an organization that is all about shifting narratives and talking about communications and culture have the power to move hearts and minds in ways that facts and advocacy often cannot. So we have to take in consideration that there is great power in the visual representation of black men, beyond what a professor or a scholar can ever have power in speaking, but there's great power in the visual. But I want to kind of get your take, because there is this thing that I see within our culture where we raise up individual stories to represent collective pain, and all under the guise that things are getting better. So if we were to say, for example, oh, how can there be a wealth disparity? Look at Jay-Z and Oprah. That's an anecdotal story, but it doesn't speak to the long-standing systemic structural racism that exists, that holds a vast majority of our people from wealth. Whether it's banks, whether it's jobs, whether it's opportunities. Y'all see what I'm saying when I'm going with this? So this piece about representation and presentation, how do we get past because this is a structural, systemic issue versus anecdotal, how do we make sure that our culture in our representation and presentation, that it speaks to the structural as much as it does speak to the anecdotal, to those individual stories?
It's tough. It's an ongoing process, I would say. Ownership is one of the biggest things that I think that we have to, that we'll be able to speak to that. Because I was just thinking about the example that you used when you talk about the wealth disparity and trying to use Jay-Z and Oprah as an example, because we have a few billionaires, LeBron, Michael Jordan. But when you think about just wealth overall, I think if you put all of the black billionaires in the United States together, they still don't touch how much just Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk make combined. You know, so when you look at numbers and disparities and things of that nature, and talking about both the structural and the anecdotal, I think it's a matter of continuing to have conversations like this, right? That's how we get it. Because for first and foremost, until you said that, it's just wow. You know, like you just opened up my eyes to something new in a different way to look at it. But I believe that we can't really focus on anecdotal, but the structure, there's so many structural damages that have taken place throughout society and what we see. You mentioned Birth of a Nation and the impact that it had. And we talk about the collective of pain and things of that nature that have come over time. And I remember back to I don't want to say hysteria, but it was just like the love and the joy of everyone when Black Panther came out. And just seeing a black superhero in a moment. Now think about how many superhero movies have come out since then. I mean, have come out before then and since then. But for that moment, because we had one. Listen to this. One.
But that's not true, though, bro. That's not true. No, I'm just going to push back on that. I went to and I took my Sunday. I took Nigel there. Went to an event at Morgan State University.
Okay.
Black comic book creators.
Mm-hmm.
They had an event where they were talking about literacy and comics and all of this stuff. And if y'all saw how many black superheroes there are in the comic book space.
Oh no, let me clarify. I agree.
I get it. Okay.
I know there's more.
Yeah. Oh man, please. And then for years, and I'm not talking, Stan Lee is not the godfather of black superheroes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
Just in that space. But yes, sir. Go ahead, bro. I'm sorry.
I'm the era. I'm of the era that, see, I'm not that young. You know what I mean? I'm of the era that was my first superhero. I'm just letting you know, Blade was my first superhero.
See, I grew up in the era where there was a white Superman, a white Batman. You see what I'm saying? I grew up in the era. I mean, that was it. Like, all the superheroes were white.
And then also, I would say I was one of the lucky ones that was blessed to see a Static Shock, and I remember that feeling.
Boom, that's a great point. Yep.
Saturday mornings, waking up and watching a show like that, where you saw, first of all, not only did Static Shock he was black, he had dreads. You know what I'm saying? He had a black father who was well versed, who could speak. You know what I'm saying? I was like, but again, going back to your initial question, like, even for me as a child, I wrestled with that, because also some of the things that are structural have been internalized. I have twists right now in my head, but I have to fight for that. I remember going to certain places where I literally they asked me, I mean, now, of course, with the Crown Act and there's legislation that is being pushed back, but I remember where there were certain places that said, can you cut your hair to get this job? Can you do this to cross over? So literally, I have to give pieces of myself to be able to step into this role, to step into these places, to step into these rooms, because as I am, present as I am, I cannot be accepted. So when we talk about that, those in my mind are more so structural than anecdotal. And I think that as we continue to have this conversation, it's just more of a reminder to us that although we have come this far, there's still so much more for us to do. There's still
Absolutely. Brother Damon, you said, Farajii, you missed his point. He was saying Black Panther is like the Jay-Z of your example in that space. No, I get it. That's true. I'm not discounting my brother's point. And you're right, Brother Damon. I didn't miss that. That didn't go over me. I just took that as an opportunity to also let us know that as much as there was all of this stuff. Now, remember, Alex, you and I were working. Of course, we were at WEAA when all of this is going down, right? And everybody was doing this all day, right? And and one of the things that I kept thinking to myself was like, but bro, like, are we putting too much on that situation? You see what I'm saying? Because here's the other part about this part of the conversation, that our culture will become corporatized and capitalized off of. So if you set the right tone, if you make the right character, if the right visual imagery of a Black man or a Black woman is just right, then that means that's going to equal money being spent on that product or whatever that project is, right? There's going to be talk of, oh yes, we are moving forward in our cultural representation, but it doesn't really push the needle in terms of changing the structural, systemic stuff behind the scenes, right? And let's not talk about the fact that back in the day and this is certainly changing, that you can have a Black superhero movie, Black superhero show. My son, Nigel, he loves watching the show Raising Dion on Netflix, right? Okay. Great show. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Great show. But remember when there was Black shows, had white writers, white creators. You see what I'm saying? There's still that ongoing problem of making sure that our stories are told in different spaces. And so, you know, it didn't go past me with the point that you were making, and I think you were right. But it got a little bit on my nerves personally, because I was like, yo, we're pumping it up. And, you know, Black folks are like, oh, man, I want to live in Wakanda. And you're like, bro, you know that's not even a real place. Or, bro, do you know some of the real places that look like that in Africa?
I want to give you an example, because you just brought up a point. My family, the audience may not know, but you know, my family's from Haiti. And I was first generation. I was born I'm the only one, I'm the youngest that was born in America. And this was my first year going back home. And I remember like it was a complete shock to me when I stepped foot on Haitian soil. Now we know that's going on. We see people that are trying to escape all the time. There is poverty in Haiti. But when I tell you there are some people in Haiti that are living better than us, and I was shocked to see this because for as long as I have lived, all I knew about Haiti was that it was this, it was that, it was negative. People were getting kidnapped, you know. So again, the perception, and this is why I say it's not so much about how other people perceive us. It is more so about how the things that we are taking and how we perceive ourselves. How do you see yourself? What it reminded me of is like, wow, this is 1804, Farajii, the only country to win we fought and won our independence. And as a consequence, for winning, we had to pay we had to pay back to France. So this crippled our economy. But I am living on this earth, in this side of the hemisphere, in this country, and I'm being told all of these negative things. So I had done research here or there, but when I stepped foot and I was able to see some of the places and go and see the richness, you talk about Wakanda, there is definitely places. There's places in South Africa. There's places in Ghana. There's places in so many different places, but we have not been able to go there. And then on top of that, again, we don't own. Going back to these structural issues. Yeah, just had a conversation where you're talking about Israel and the Hamas situation. We don't control what is coming out. So if we don't have people on the ground that literally have cameras and are able to have, thank God for Wi-Fi and internet, it may not be the strongest, but to be able to put out these images, we would only be able to indulge what people are saying about it. And that is scary because now you are control. It is a stream of control in a sense, not trying to get into no conspiracy theories or anything, but to understand the power. If you see something over and over and over and over again, at some point you start to internalize it, whether you want to or not, because it is now just becoming repetitive. And that is essentially what when you saw it with Black Panther, I fell into the hype just because I saw it. Look, at this point, it's like everybody's hyped over it. I gotta see it because now I feel like you're missing up. I'm left. But guess what? It was in a positive sense because at that moment, I felt proud about who I was. I felt empowered. But let's think about how many other times did that was taken away from me because I'm seeing other people that look just like me being killed, gunned down. These are the stories, mugshots, all of these different things that are being portrayed in the media, cops killing the kids. And man, all of these things are happening time and time again. I'm sorry I'm getting a little passionate about it, but these are the things on the latter side. So for that one moment, and there's have been others, but for these moments where we have moments to stand and be enjoyable about the things like a Black Panther, we have to hold on to that, but then create more. It should be an initiative within ourselves to be the next Ryan Coogler. It should be an initiative within that because you see one to continue, but then more importantly, this is why the platform that you have is so important. What you're doing right now is so important. Some people, this will be the only time that they will ever hear my voice. God willing, I have more opportunities after this, but this is the only time I ever hear my voice. And this is because people like you, people like Roland, create this platform so that other people can be highlighted. I did not go a traditional route. I did not know that I could be a journalist. And I know that we are talking about mass media and Black men overall, but this is not a message that's just for Black men. This is for Black women. This is for Black boys, for Black girls. This is for a Black community overall, because we need more of this. We need more summits like this. We need more conversations to be able to shape the narrative, and we can move forward with an authority. We're not asking for permission no more, bro. We need to move with an authority that no, we are conquering this story. But again, it comes, look, the bottom line, it takes support. So y'all listening to my voice, support Farajii, support Roland. We need to use our dollars. We talk about the importance of the Black dollars and how the 2 hours, they say. I remember the TED Talk, I said the Black dollar stays within our community for 2 hours before it's sent somewhere else into another community and spent. But that's systematic because we don't own nothing. We don't have banks. We do have banks, correct? We don't have a lot of structural things that will be able to create that economy. So when we do like something like this, it is important for us to feed this fire. Don't ever let this fire go out, because this fire will be a torch that can be passed on to light other fires. And it already has. Sorry.
Hey, bro, I got to take a note. It's just all, man, you ain't got to read, bro. Please, passion is what drives the show. So come on, man, stop playing. Look, we got to take another quick pause when we come forward. Let's have more conversation about this, folks. As I'm talking to my brother, Alex Blanc. We're talking about black men in mass media. Join the discussion. Share your thoughts on it, on this topic, as we are streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page and, of course, on social media. So make sure that you join us in the conversation. When we come forward, I've got some more stuff I want to share with you as we have this conversation, because we also got to look at how do black men from various communities, from marginalized communities within the black community, how do they see themselves? How do they find a voice? If you're part of the LGBTQ community, if you're part of the community of brothers and sisters who come from the islands, like my brother Alex does, but they don't see themselves as part of, as being welcomed by American black men. Let's talk a little bit about that. Plus, later on, can we get some solutions on the table? Can we have some conversations about what should we do moving forward? How can we change the culture? How can we change the narrative? Folks, we still got a lot of work to do, and certainly a lot of conversation. So stay with us. It's the Culture's Black Men Summit, where we're redefining and celebrating Black manhood right here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, welcome back to the Culture's Black Men Summit, redefining and celebrating Black manhood. And this is day 4 of our summit as we talk about Black men in mass media, having a very rich and robust conversation with my brother, Alex Blanc, who is an executive producer, podcaster, and a brother who advocates for the media. So I appreciate Brother Alex on this situation. And then, of course, I want to... let me just turn that down. Then I also want to, in a few moments, we're going to be bringing in another voice. This is a brother who who is an award-winning journalist. He's out of the LGBTQ community, and I'm certainly happy that he's able to join us for the final few minutes of the show today to talk to us about the work he's doing. We're going to have Brother Ernest Owens joining us as well. So let me get to a couple of the comments from our culture crew, Alex and Brother Ernest, as we've had this conversation about Black men in mass media, because I think it's important for us to continue to highlight certain areas of this. Corinna, my sister, Corinna, you checked in and said, you said a number of things, Corinna. So let me make sure I'm pulling your things up, because you talking some good stuff here, Corinna. You said, this is why reading and studying texts of scholars are important. It provides a foundation to sift through the misleading images and narratives displayed in mainstream media. So Alex, what's your take on that? Having this situation, what's your take on that in terms of having people, having that basis, that foundation of knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a scripture that says, like, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. And I think there's a saying that my mom used to tell me, but I've heard it before and heard it regurgitated. So she got it from somebody else. But if you can't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, And when we do this, the importance of that research is there's so much, again, misinformation that is being put out there now. It is imperative that you do your research. It's an imperative that you study and start to make your own better judgment, get aware and get involved with the materials or anything that is of interest to you. But then more importantly, what is affecting you? So I stand there with you. I mean, I thank you so much for that comment, because if you know me, Farajii, we talk about most recently bell hooks, the will to change and
yeah, bro.
About femininity and malehood and things of that nature and love.
That's it.
There's so much insightful information that is out there. So I'm a true advocate for studying the game and just being a byproduct of it.
Absolutely. Let me bring my brother Ernest Owens into this conversation. Ernest, thank you so again for your time and joining us today. As we're talking about this situation, I mean, I hate identity politics, brother Ernest. So I'm not trying to just put you out there like, he represents the LGBT. But I think for the sake of this conversation, making sure that people understand that Black men are in a lot of different places, right? But what I do find to be interesting is the simple fact, brother Ernest, that there are men who are part of, whether you're part of LGBT community, the Latin American community, the community from the Caribbean islands, like, from Haiti. How can those brothers see themselves? And what's the stance that Black men can take to start to push, hey, you say, look, okay, we as Black men, we are a diverse group here, and we all need to be seen and recognized.
Well, thank you for that. I think for starters, what we have to stop doing is creating those divisions within our own spaces. I think a lot of times we create those divisions before they exist. Largely, when I came to the industry, I just wanted to share various stories of my life. Not just my sexual orientation, that was one aspect of my story, but the story of the fact I'm an entrepreneur, somebody who, grew up working class, went to the Ivy League to get my degree, created my own, company as a professional freelance journalist, run various organizations that mentor. And I'm not cherry picking which Black person I'm working with, whether they're straight, whether they come from money, whether they come from a working class background, whether they go to HBCU. I'm a professor of HBCU right now at Cheney University. I don't see all of those various factors. I allow to just recruit various people that got the talent, come to the table, let's tell our unique stories and build from there. That's what I strive to do. And I think we can fix that when we don't try to compartmentalize everyone or background. I think that has been something I've noticed a lot in the industry, is that we limit people's abilities when we pigeonhole them based on one aspect around the other. They'll be like, oh, this is a Muslim Black journalist. And it's like, yeah, they're Muslim, but they also various other things in Islam. And we
right.
And and in some ways it's important to know the diversity of the group, but we also can't assume that person, like us as Black people, are only going to want to speak on one issue all the time. So it's all about.
No, that's a great point, brother Ernest.
Diversifying the talent. Yeah.
That's a fantastic point. And I get that as all the time. People be looking at my name and they be like, oh, okay, so you want to speak on Islam and right. Muslim Islam. And you're like, I've been doing this for, what I'm saying, Alex, and people see you, Alex, and I know you and I've had conversations. People try to limit us as Black men. And I think that we're starting to see some pushback on that, right?
Mhm.
But it's still not as strong. And let me just share this with you. This is coming from and I'm gonna go back to the Opportunity Agenda. Again, folks, check them out, opportunityagenda.org, as they looked at this issue of representation. But they said that from the perspective of most scholars who focus on the topic of Black males in mass media, there is a clear causal story that links media representation of Black men and boys to real world outcomes. They said that in turn, for various reasons, media of all types collectively offer a distorted representation of the lives and reality of Black men across the board. In turn, media consumption negatively affects the public's understanding and attitudes related to Black men. And finally, these distorted understandings and attitudes toward Black males lead to negative real-world consequences for them. It also includes the understanding and attitudes of that Black men have of themselves. So when we talk about, and this is something that I see as often, that some of us as Black men, we find it to be hard to recognize and truly see other Black men that is not like us because of the mass media indoctrination that happens, right? So I can't accept that you are part of this group or part of that group, or I can't look past the fact that you are part of one group and I can't see nothing else. You could be the greatest writer, director, you could be the greatest producer, you could be the greatest host, but you are part of that one group I can't accept. So therefore, your value in my eyes is small and diminished. Brother Ernest, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think, one of the things we got to do is, one, recognize the difference between corporate media, white-owned media, and how they do that compared to how Black-owned media do. Because I think we make conflations about that reality. I think I work for various media companies, diversify the bag, I suppose. But I think about, the predominantly white media outlets I work with, I feel like I have to explain more. I have to make things make sense more versus with Black media, when I'm creating content, when I'm talking to the community, I'm just sharing these stories and not feeling as though I have to provide even more context. And I think that's something that, for Black men specifically in industry, when we are included, how we're able to explain ourselves,
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about some of the steps that we can take moving forward on this process. Alex, I want to get your thoughts on that. And Brother Ernest, of course, from you as well. Folks, stay tuned. That conversation will continue and we'll find some resolutions, some solutions to this on the other side, right here on the Cultures Black Men Summit, right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
folks, welcome back to the Culture's Black Men Summit as we are in day 4, just about to wrap up day 4 of the conversation as we talk about Black men in mass media. Joining me has been Alex Blanc, who is the executive producer, podcaster, and media advocate. And we're also joined by award-winning journalist Ernest Owens as well. Alex, I want to kind of get your take as we look about moving forward. What would you recommend for us as a people, Black America tuning in? How do we start to do our part to just dismantle some of this power that we see coming through our screens and into our ears every day?
We just have to continue to educate ourselves. Just educate. Education is one of our biggest keys to freedom. Educate ourselves in the forms of what we're doing right now and having this conversation. Tune into people that are actually speaking truth. Tune into people that are actually advocating for you. Don't find yourself into places that are just redundant information. They're spewing redundant information that are not feeding your spirit, not feeding your soul, not feeding your being of who you are as an African American. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, the path forward looks like there's so many different ways that we can go, but the one thing that we have to continue to do is move forward. No matter how it may look, is just to know that there are people that have pushed us to the place that we are now and continue to take the efforts that our ancestors put in to continue to move forward. But again, lastly, before I go, support the institutions that are already advocating for you, for me, and for all of us. So I'm gonna give this bug again and plug this in. Support Farajii Muhammad. I don't know the Cash App, but I know that Roland got a commercial that he's probably gonna run after this. So support, grab everything. Support the institutions that are out here advocating. Because I could tell you this, not just because I have been there and in that room, I know for a fact that these individuals at the Black Star Network are on the ground for everything pertaining to our people. And if they had more people in that staff room, we would be everywhere. So support the institutions that are supporting you.
Absolutely. I love it. Brother Ernest, what will be your recommendations? We're talking about moving forward here. What can Black America do to start that process or to continue that process?
I think the biggest thing we should do is make it a point to amplify and embolden Black journalism organizations across this country. I am a member of the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists on the local level. There are several Black journalism associations across the country locally that we should be supporting, for various reasons, because we need to find community and link up. And I think too often we try to do it on a national scale, but it's really in our own backyards, like looking at the Black publications and TV stations, looking at those Black journalists in our community telling our stories and building coalition and building people brick by brick, block by block, city by city, state by state, to have a more national unison. Because I think we are out here together and we're doing a lot of this work in silos, and we need to really come together. And that won't help if we're not looking and seeing the brother across from us on the radio side, the TV side, and bringing people together and bringing us together and sharing resources and growing together.
Absolutely. I love that, big brother Ernest, and I appreciate you for pointing that out as well. And Alex, I couldn't agree with you more. It's easy for us to get into a space of criticizing, right? It's easy for us to start shouting and screaming, "Oh man, we need to see more representation." But I'm going back to the point you just made, brother Ernest. Start locally. Start at home. We're probably in a space where there are more spaces for Black people and Black men to tell their stories than there ever been. And you know this, Alex, because of podcasting. There are more podcasters now probably more podcasters now than radio shows and TV shows. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's always a space for Black men to be heard and seen and felt and understood. But it just requires us to be knowledgeable about those spaces, and more important, like you say, being supportive of it. The other thing is, this is something that came from the opportunity agenda they pointed out, and I agree with this, that Black men need to be a part of the production and content creation process every single step of the way. You're doing the work that you do for Values Partnership, Alex, so you know that behind the scenes means everything. Yes, you can have a smiling, handsome man standing in front of that camera, But if you don't have a black cinematographer, a black director, a black sound person, a black producer, all of those roles that need to be played for the creation of those productions and that content, it's going to be a band. I saw Shannon Sharp. He was talking to Ocho Cinco. If y'all ever see Shannon, Uncle Shannon, and him and Ocho Cinco, they have the funniest conversation. But very quickly, he said this. He was talking about the time he went on to do a show, and the makeup artist made up his face, and he said they did not know how to. The woman did not know how to apply makeup to a dark-skinned black man. Just something as simple as that, and how he felt embarrassed and was not happy with the end result of her makeup style of black men. There's a space for everybody in the process. Brother Alex, what's your take on that? I know you got something to say on that, bro.
I mean, you just said it. Like, there is a place for everybody across the process. And it's important because just want to think back to in 2020 when you have all of these corporations that made commitments. Everybody was making a commitment to DEI efforts and everything. And you think about how the process has fallen off. How many of these corporations are still falling in line with the promises that they made then? So this is why it is important for us to be in these rooms every step of the process, because you'll have that individual that's like, wait. No, you said that you were going to do this. Like, this is what we said. How do we get from the beginning of the process to the execution? And you lay that out the entire way. So absolutely, this is very important. And you need, and again, what you just said is very important, because I need everybody to hear what you just said. Everybody has a place in this process. Do not feel like you are not worthy. You play a valuable role in this process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got to let you both go. But Brother Ernest, Brother Alex, thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing. But most importantly, we thank you, brothers, for being so good for the culture. Brother Ernest, we got to have you back on to have a much longer conversation about some of the work that you're doing, brother. So I'd love to have you on that. And Alex, we're going to bring you back on. We're going to certainly bring you back on. So I thank you, brothers, for the great work that y'all doing. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I certainly want to thank my production team. First, my very special partner in this whole process of making this summit happen, my sister Olivia Almagro, who has been working with us to make sure that these conversations happen. My production team. Folks, also check out my coverage partner here at afrolanews.org. Just go to afrolanews.org if you want to get the latest news and information about what's going on in Black Los Angeles. And Lisa, if we could pull up that website very quickly, make sure y'all can do so. And check out afrolanews.org, where they have in-depth reporting, culturally relevant information, all with an interest in keeping Black Angelenos in mind. So make sure you go to afrolanews.org to get that latest information. And there it is right there. And that's the website for Afro LA News and the work that they're doing and the work that we're doing together with them. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I thank each and every one of you for joining us for this very special day, for day 4 of the Black Men Summit, Black Men in Mass Media. Make sure you let your friends and family know that over these past few days, we've been having these conversations. And so we want to make sure that we spread them out. We share these the links as much as possible, and just keep us informed about all of these things. Tomorrow, we're going to have our final day of the summit, and we're going to talk about Black men in the family and community. We're going to be checking in with Dr. Ray Winbush, my man Elijah Miles, and another brother and others who are going to give us some insight on how we can hold up our end of the bargain, brothers, of being family men, leading the community. So that is going to be tomorrow's conversation. All right, as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong, stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Follow us on social media and stay tuned. Up next at 6 p.m. is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Have a great evening. Peace.